Shawn Porter himself. Shawn, how are you, my friend? Can we hear Shawn Porter? I believe Shawn is. There we go, Shawn. Shawn, how are you, my friend?
Good, man. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Now, first of all, Shawn, I want to ask you, we are obviously dealing with the coronavirus, COVID-19, this pandemic that has affected the entire world, but how are you doing? How's your family? Is everyone okay and safe and sound?
We're good, man. My heart goes out to anyone who has lost a loved one, or anyone who's sick right now, battling this thing. It's been a wild, crazy last 3 or 4, 5, 6 months now. So, but on my side of everything, my family is okay. My dad is okay. Training went well, and we're excited about Saturday.
Now, Shawn, did you have a fight? Your last fight was that tremendous battle. It was a war between you and Errol Spence at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. The crowd rose to their feet in the 12th round. But did you have a fight scheduled before COVID that got delayed? Were you in the process of getting a fight? What was the status of Shawn Porter, as COVID kind of began? Because some guys had their dates pushed back.
I was training, also doing the Inside PBC boxing show, and we were in the stages of trying to schedule a fight. Before the COVID hit, we were, I think, gunning towards June, and then once COVID really hit the U.S. and everyone started talking about the quarantine, we pretty much let go of that opportunity to fight in June. With the understanding that we would just come back as soon as possible.
Now, were there any opponents that you were circulated towards or that they threw at you? Or was it kind of like, here's a potential date or a month, and then we'll figure out the opponent really soon, and then COVID hit?
Well, coming off the fight in September, wanting to fight, we actually wanted to fight in March. And I think at the early part of the year, we weren't seeing anything materialize as far as the opponent goes or a date, and things just kind of started to shift a little bit. And I think as we were trying to figure out, okay, who we going to fight, who we going to go after, I think that's when things really started to ramp up with the COVID and the quarantine.
Well, let's talk about your opponent on Saturday night. He is making his U.S. debut. He's an unknown quantity. He's undefeated. 33 years of age, from Germany, Sebastian Formella, 22-0 with 10 knockouts. What do you know about the German who is making his U.S. debut?
I know a lot about him. I think most people will be surprised to hear that, but the good part about being me is I have a lot of connections, and my connections are always willing to help. And so multiple people actually in Germany who were able to give myself as well as my dad information on the fighter. Another connection who was able to give me about 10 fights of his that were all over there in Germany and Europe. So I know a lot about the guy. He likes to use the ring. He likes to move. He needs some space to work. And, and he wants to use a long-rangey jab too. So nothing new for me. I think for you guys, you'll see a different approach to our tactics and how we plan to take on and take out Sebastian Formella.
So you're kind of saying that we might see a little bit different of a Shawn Porter compared to what we've seen in the past?
I think you always see a different Shawn Porter every fight. It's just always depends on the fighter and their style. So I can definitely say my last 5 fights, you don't see the exact same Shawn Porter in the ring. You may see hints of one Shawn Porter in 2 particular fights, but and definitely my last 5 fights, there's a different Shawn Porter definitely throughout each of those fights. So I think a lot the same here. It's gonna be similar to some other Shawn Porters, but you'll see some differences as well. And you'll say, okay, Shawn Porter has added another wrinkle to his game.
Shawn, you are a heavy favorite coming into this fight. Do you feel any added pressure to go out and stop Formella, and that way you can go ahead and people know what you bring to the table in the top ranks of the welterweight division? But do you feel any pressure to go out and, all right, I really need to smash this guy to let everyone know that, I'm still top 2, top 3 in the world?
You know what? With this fight here, I came to my dad. I told him as soon as this quarantine is up and we're able to get in the ring, I want to be one of the first guys to get in the ring for PBC. And I told my dad that I'm taking the responsibility to boxing and PBC and Fox in my hands. You know, I think that I'm the best representative for boxing right now to get in the ring and do what I do. When I get in the ring, you're always going to be excited. You're always going to see some great action, and you're definitely going to see a great human being in the ring of myself. And so that's basically what I'm doing. Is I guess if anything, whoever considers it pressure, I put the pressure on myself to take the responsibility of boxing, the responsibility of championship level boxing in my hands and get in the ring as soon as possible. And that ends up being August 22nd.
Shawn, what did you learn in your last fight against Errol Spence? Because it was no mistake about it. You both were going at it and slugging it out at Staples Center. What did you take away and have brought with you into this fight that you encountered in the fight with Spence?
You know, I think something that my dad always does after every fight is we always go back to the fundamentals and to the basics of boxing. And not that they were lacking in that fight, but there were definitely some small moments, laws, if you will, where I may have dropped my guard a little bit, may have done some things a little unorthodox, unlike my training. So getting back to training was the exact same thing. Got to keep the hands up. You got to punch and stay in position when you punch and things like that. So I think you definitely see the fundamentals being displayed on Saturday night.
Shawn, you've beaten Danny Garcia, you've beaten Devin Alexander, Paulie Malignaggi. You've had some high-profile wins. You've been in a war with Keith Thurman, with Errol Spence, with everybody that you've stepped inside the ring with. I'm about that. I mean, literally everybody. You have been a pro for almost 12 years, and I feel like you pretty much ran the gamut when it comes to the top of the 147-pound division. But who was the toughest guy that you stepped inside the ring with, and can you tell me why?
I would say, it's got to be. I've had some tough fights out there too. It would be one of these three. My toughest fights: Kell Brook, Keith Thurman, and Errol Spence. No particular order. I can't really say which fighter was the best fighter, proposed the best opposition to me. I think at the point in time when I fought Kell Brook, I think I held myself back from everything that I could accomplish in that fight. The fight with Keith Thurman, I think we had a great game plan going in. I think we executed everything very well, and the same thing with Errol Spence. I think at the end of the day, it's not about which fighter was the toughest, but you know how many of those fans were pleased and excited with what they saw at the end of the night. That's what matters to me.
You know, it could obviously be on the opposite end where you only have maybe one defeat, or could, potentially maybe even be, undefeated in some aspects. But do you think that, in terms of fighting the best in the welterweight division, that a fight with Pacquiao or maybe a Terrence Crawford may line the wings, or would you want a rematch with Errol Spence? Because I know you've mentioned fighting Manny Pacquiao before.
Well, you know what? I've said this. I never saw myself fighting Sebastian Formella. Didn't know him before the fight was made. So for me, I can always say what I want to do, but I don't know what's going to happen. So to keep it plain and simple, Errol Spence, Keith Thurman, Manny Pacquiao, Danny Garcia. Right now, the fight with Terrence Crawford at the moment is still on the back burner, but that's a fight I think can still be made out there. So I'm interested in big names. I don't think those big names are as interested in me, but we'll take what they give us, and myself, my team, and God will do the rest.